Hi everyone, welcome to Ibrox. Joshua and Chris here ahead of Rangers against Ross County in the Scottish Premiership. I was going to say it's the last game of a long January, Chris, but we're actually into February as Rangers try to continue what's been a good last couple of weeks. You can see the team in front of you, so we're going to react to it quickly pre-match as ever. I'll read it out. For those of you that are just listening, it's Jack Butland in goals, the back four of James Tavernier, John Souttar, Clinton Inciala and Chefty, Mohamed Diamande and Nico Raskin stay in the midfield, joined, I think it will be by Hamza Ikaman in that number 10 slot that we saw away at Dundee United last weekend. Cyril Dessers continues up top with Václav Černý and Yanis Hadji off either side. The bench reads Kelly, Proper, Lawrence, Bayrami, Rafael Fernandez, McCausland, Rice, Curtis and Enciso. A couple of talking points to get into, Chris. One of them is a certain omission on the bench, which we will discuss. But aside from that, just focusing on the starting 11 first. No major surprises. Eggman, you presume, will come back into that central role where he looks more comfortable. And John Souttar gets a first start since early December, which is a big positive.
It's a strong side. It's probably stronger than I expected. I thought we might see a bit more rotation after the exertions of Thursday night and the exertions of what has been a busy old run. But it's certainly a strong side. It's a side you would more than expect to go and win this game fairly comfortably. Interesting to see where Agaman plays. I'm hoping it's as you've got it lined up there in that 10 role. Don't think he had his best game of the left hand side the other night there. So I think he's definitely more effective centrally. Apart from that, it's as expected, and as you said, good to see John Souttar back in. Spoke to Derek about that pre-match on Thursday night and how Clement would kind of ease him back in, or how much game time does he want to give John Souttar. He's clearly felt that he was more than ready for the game time that he got the other night. Clearly feels that he's okay to come in, and now he might not play the entire game, but it's good to see him back in from the start. And the rest of it picks itself these days, because in form and fitness, there's not many other alternatives. I thought we might see when a younger player starting. I think I had Bailey Rice in my predicted side. Like to see Rice, like to see Curtis, like to see Enzo try and get some minutes off the bench if the match allows.
Yeah, imagine as well with the fact that Rangers don't have a midweek game next week or the week after, and it's Queen of the South here and then Hearts away. Queen's Park. Queen of the South, sorry. One of those days. That would maybe be the game where you see the likes of Rice and Curtis in particular play from the start. John Souttar will be a big help to Rangers because they've really missed him. But one area that we've discussed a few times over recent weeks is defensive set pieces. I think Rangers have conceded 6, it might even be 7. Goals from defensive set pieces. That includes the throw-in against Dundee United, includes the wide free kick against Union in midweek, but they've looked shaky from there. And if you're comparing Souttar to Proper, and it's, I think, good to see Inciala continue in that role instead of Clement going with the two more experienced players. But Souttar's definitely better in the air than Proper, and that's probably an area that I think you'll see an improvement in Rangers. Defending in general, but defending set pieces, because that has been a vulnerability over recent weeks, hasn't it? There's no other way about it.
You would imagine Ross County will be looking at this game and thinking, where are their best chances going to come from? You would. It's unlikely they're going to play through Rangers too often, and they're going to go and create lots and lots of chances. They'll be looking at, can they get free kicks in the right areas? Can they make the most of throw-ins, and can they make the most of corners? And that's obviously falling into a central partnership that has not been that dominant in the air. You look at the issues that Jack Butland has had of late, fairly well documented and fairly well publicised. They will be looking at, can they exploit that? I think Rangers having John Souttar in there, it does alleviate some of that. As you said, he is more dominant in the air. He is more effective in the air. And again, as you touched on there, good to see Inciala get the nod as well. It'd be easy, I think, for the manager to say, well, we've got players back fit, we'll bring Souttar back in, we'll keep Robin Proper in there. I think it's a big show of faith in Inciala, and it's good because we need to see him get as much game time as possible. We need to see what level he's going to be at heading into next season, and this is the type of game he should come through it relatively comfortably, but another good experience for him.
Yeah, Ross County, who are obviously kind of still fighting for their lives. St Johnstone have picked up good form at the bottom of the Scottish Premiership. They've at points, I think, when they've played Clement's played Ross County, in particular that game here way back almost a year ago when Rangers were still in that title race. The fact that they man mark, it's not so similar to a Dundee or a Kilmarnock. Whether that continues today, I think Rangers are a bit more suited to that as opposed to when a team just sits in and is zonal. But we will see. The rest of the team, Chris, it kind of speaks for itself. Václav Černý is now on 20 goals and assists by January, which is pretty good. Rangers haven't had that in a winger in a long time. Yanis Hadji comes back in too. But I want to speak about the bench because there are a few omissions there that are notable. No Ridvan Yilmaz still. Obviously, he picked up an injury. There was the whole debacle about his future last week when we were up at Tannadice that Clement was quick to squash. But he's not on the bench again. There's no Danilo. There's no Oscar Cortez. And there's no Zach Lovelace too. And we reported, I think, just over a week ago that Rangers were in talks with Lovelace and Curtis to extend their futures at the club. Obviously, Bailey Rice had previously signed a long-term contract, as had Mason Munn. I believe that Paul and Seal's deal runs out next season, I think, as opposed to the end of the current season. We need to double check that. But that lovely submission, if we start on that, that's an interesting one given his contract situation and the last few weeks, shall we say, the fact that he has now been in the first team more regularly.
It's on our agenda and on our to-do list for the next 24 hours and however many hours we've got left of the transfer window. I know there'll be a lot of social media discussion about him potentially knocking back that contract, potentially going to go back down the road to Millwall. I think that's definitely one to keep an eye on over the next 30 hours or whatever's left of this.
Not
that I'm counting down to it at all. I think it's 32 it must be now, roughly. Not that we're counting down to it at all. But that's one to potentially have a look at. Interesting that he's not on the bench. And also you then touched on Ridvan. That will be the obvious one of after all his social media output last week, and the manager been really strong on that up at Tannadice. There are still players that are out of this squad, unfortunately. There are still players who are injury prone. I think Dujon Sterling unfortunately falls into that category. Not seen him for a while. Also Danilo not back yet. So it is still a squad that is fairly well stocked in terms of numbers, and also the next day and a bit will determine just what group the manager's got to play with over the second half of this campaign.
Yeah, definitely. And aside from that, as you say, there is a few omissions on the bench. Obviously, Dujon Sterling continues to not be involved. Cyril Desser's piece on him on the website yesterday. He's had a good January after a bit of an indifferent December. People can read our kind of thoughts in more detail on this argument on the website, Chris. At this moment in time, it looks like he will be a Rangers player beyond the end of the deadline. You never know what can happen, and that interest, which is floated about for really the entirety of the window, could definitely cement itself on deadline day. But he's definitely in a better place than he came into this month. And I think he scored 6 goals, 3 of those obviously against Fraserburgh, but 3 really good finishes against Aberdeen, Dundee United and Man United, and obviously created the goal against Union as well. I thought his all-round game against Union was the best 90 minutes he's had, because there's definitely been games in the last year and a half where you've said Des has just scored a great couple of goals and people still haven't put him in the man of the match conversation. Is playing alongside Hamza Agaman helping him, do you think? Because he did mention that in a recent interview.
I think so. He doesn't look as isolated over these last few games. I think when Dessers looks at his worst, it's because the rest of the team doesn't play to his style, doesn't play to his strengths. We've seen him in a number of games. There's long balls knocked up to him. He's trying to win them himself. There's no one to play into. There's no one to play off of, and it's a thankless task playing that role at the best of times. When that's not your game, when that's not what you're good at, you're always going to look even worse. There's been a number of games, certainly at Ibrox. He spoke about that last week at Tannadice as well, in terms of the reaction that he's had at times. Not all of it has been his fault. I think there's like a collective responsibility there by Dessers. Has not always been the most effective. Last few games, as you touched on there, he's been a lot more effective. Thursday night, he was excellent, and I would now be, given the time that's left, I would be surprised if Rangers were to move him on now. The manager mentioned that, I think it was post Fraserburgh, and said if he was to move on, then he would look for a player of a similar standard, a similar standing to come in. That's not an easy thing to do at the best of times in this January window, never mind when you're into the final day of it. And if you look at what Dessers is going to be worth in purely financial terms, is he going to be worth that much less come the summer than he is right now? Say you get X number of millions for him, what are you potentially losing if you hold on to him for the next couple of months? £100,000. But on the flip side of that, if he plays well in Europe, also another couple of games coming up. If he can go and score another handful of Premiership goals, his value in purely financial terms stays the same or potentially rises. Rangers can then say, well, he scored 20 goals last season. There's every chance he gets to that level again. So I think he's worthwhile holding on to. Is he the answer? Is he the guy that you say he's my number 9 for the first Premiership year of next season? Probably not. But I think all things considered, it makes sense to hold on to him now.
Yeah, okay, we'll be speaking to Philippe Clement right after the game. Obviously, transfers will undoubtedly come up. We don't know how much Clement will give away, but over the next, 32 hours of the remaining transfer window, stick with us in the Rangers Review. We'll be live tomorrow night, as well as tomorrow morning, and all the breaking news you will hear from us across our channels. And we'll speak to you after this game as well today. But until then, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the game wherever you're watching it, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.